You know, that makes me super happy. I'm a big science junkie. I really love listening to these things. Some of my uncles and my aunts, they like talk about different growth. To my point a while ago, I was telling you that it's so difficult, especially when you have young athletes, no? Because you really have to bulk up on the muscle and not on the fat. And sometimes when you're a mom, and even for me, I've been a mom for about almost 22 years now, it's still a new concept to me. And so that's why everything that you have said about PediaSure Plus is quite, reassuring, as Cheska would say it, because then now I know that, okay, now I know why Elio asks more questions. Now I know he runs faster than me now because of PediaSure Plus. I'm like, and you know what? I had a really, really interesting story with Alonso because he's 10. Yeah, and so he asks a lot of questions, and I told him that PediaSure Plus, the CPPs actually act as school buses to just so he gets it at his level, because often when you tell him something like this, he doesn't digest it right away. But if you actually put it into a perspective that they truly understand as children, they get it. And I say, so now when you drink more milk, you eat more cheese, all the calcium, iron, and zinc over in that food will be absorbed better by your body because of that, because of this. Now he understands it more, and now I understand it
You're
more.
the best storyteller, mommy.
Yeah, because I do it for a living, I guess. I've been a storyteller for quite a while. But when you hear clinical proven results, yun ang pinakamalaking tulong talaga, is because there is proof. And it's not just all on paper. There is proof that all these children, 330, correct? No. 330 already went through it and they were undernourished, and all of a sudden, it's a very holistic approach to making our children healthier and stronger.
Yeah, Dimples, you mentioned the word clinically proven, which is a key word for me as a doctor, because when you say it's clinically proven, it means that it is based on evidence. And as Dr. Mandy presented, the SPROUT study was conducted in children in Southeast Asia using the new PediaSure formulation. And it was demonstrated over 8 months among 330 children. So it's really the longest and the biggest study of its kind in the world. No? So that's why it's a very important study. And Abbott has been a pioneer in nutrition research, and we do invest in research and clinical trials so that we can really provide evidence that the benefits of the oral nutritional supplements such as PediaSure Plus can actually do certain things like benefits on the child's growth. So we have proof, we have evidence. And at the same time, we use this evidence to generate more nutrition solutions or innovations that will be continually responsive and relevant to the doctor and to the child's needs, especially when it comes to growth. That is why we continuously do science-based nutrition products so that this can benefit people from all over the world, and including Filipino children.
So in other words, PediaSure Plus is legit. Diba? Which brings us to a question many moms ask: when is the best time to start intervening or taking action? Doc Olay, what is your view on this?
Well, early childhood, especially during the first 5 years, is a window of rapid growth and development. And during this stage, children need essential nutrients to build strong bones, support brain development, and of course, strengthen their immune system. And if they're not getting enough during this time, and it would become, challenging to catch up later on. That is why feeding children proper nutrition consistently and early can make a big difference. So the earlier, the better talaga.
Agree. As with everything, Doc Olay, ako talaga, I'm so glad that we're hearing all these conversations today, because at least we're being aware. This really puts everything into great perspective, especially for parents like myself. But it's not just about feeding them, it's about feeding them well at the time when our children really need it the most to achieve optimal growth. And when you say optimal growth, talagang in everything, muscle, lean, brain also, and how they communicate themselves.
Exactly. And timing is just as important. And around 60% of the child's adult height is already achieved or determined by the age of 5. And during these 5 years, nutrition and environment account for around 80% of the growth, while genetics only contribute to around 20%. But when the child turns to around 5 to 10 years old, it becomes a 50-50 balance between your genetics and nutrition. That is why it is very important and acting early gives us the greatest opportunity to support growth and development. And beyond 10, of course, kung naging early adolescent na po ang ating anak, and it is his or her final growth spurt, nutrition is still has a very good role in maximizing the nutrition. And of course, the recent National Nutrition Survey data shows that around 50% of Filipino children are stunted or at risk of stunting. So that's a big number, right? So sa mga mommies po dito, parang kung 50%, baka nandun yung anak ko. Diba? So, nakikita niyo po ba? Sino po yung mga mommy dito? Ayan. Ayan. Nakikita niyo po ba, di ba, pag pumupunta po kayo sa clinics ng inyong, sa pediatricians po ninyo, plina-plot po nung kinukuhanan siya ng weight, ng height, and then plina-plot po nung inyong pediatrician. Nakikita niyo po ba yung curve dun sa growth chart? Napapansin niyo po ba yon? So yun po yung mga ginagamit po namin mga pediatricians para makita po yung pag-growth spurt, yung mga ang tawag dito, growth chart, yun, minimeasure po namin yung weight and height ng mga anak ninyo para makita po namin kung tama po ba, naaangkop po ba yung kanilang tangkad sa kanilang edad. And syempre, di ba, tinatanong rin po namin, gaano po ba kadalas magkaroon ng pagkakasakit ang ating mga anak. So lahat po yun, pag pumupunta po tayo sa ating mga sa clinics ng ating mga pediatricians, chine-check po lahat ng inyong mga doktor.
You know, Doc Ola, you were saying, no, that really speaks to me because whenever we would go trip to our pediatrician, they would have a chart. And so when the kids are a bit older, like Alonzo is now 10, it becomes a source of insecurity for them when they see that they're quite stunted compared to the other kids. So, you know, this also plays a really big role in their mental health, even as children. And so I did, you know, at the time when the kids were younger, Callie when she was younger, now Alonzo 10 and Ilio at 3, I honestly didn't realize how much of an impact that would be. Yung early consumption of proper nutrition that could make to the lives of our children. You know, now I'm more intentional in what I feed them. I really make sure that our bonding moments are really meal times because as a working mom myself, sometimes I'm very guilty. Like, you just feed them whatever is there. But really now we get to plan, we get to, okay, what are we having today? And it becomes a more exciting time for my kids to be eating. And I'm so glad that Ilio now, who seems to be bigger than Kuya in comparison. So Kuya now is more, he tries to drink more PediaSure Plus to really try to get onto the bus. And he's like, oh my gosh, I don't. So Ilio is 3, but his height is for almost like a 6-year-old. Yes, because we are, so I'm like, how many PediaSure Pluses have you been drinking, kid? So now we really make sure that everything that he intakes really has an effect with the optimal growth window, which is first 5 years. I can still make sure that everything is at the right time. And ang dami-dami kong natututunan ngayon sa inyo, Dr. June and Dr. Ala, and of course, Dr. Mandy. So I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation. I'm so sure that everybody who's listening in also, no?
Yes, actually very true. You drew a very important point that early intervention is key in the first 5 years of life because that is when the first growth spurt occurs. And therefore, you have to support it nutritionally by giving the child the building blocks and the energy needed so that the child can unlock his or her full growth potential. However, we can only intervene early if we are aware. And if we can detect that the child has some maybe growth issues or maybe hopefully walang growth issues. But how do we check that? As Dr. Ole mentioned, we have certain tools. We have the growth chart, the WHO growth chart, which compares children to their peers. And you can see there the normal height for age, the child is at risk or if the child is stunted. Now, but there is an easier way. As you can see on the screen, there is now an Abbott growth calculator. You can use your phones, scan the QR code on the screen, and it will lead you to the website where you have the Abbott growth calculator. Now, how do you use the growth calculator? It will just prompt you to key in certain information, such as the child's birthday, so that you can compute for the age, the child's height in centimeters, and the child's gender. Kasi magkaiba yung growth trajectory ng babae at ng lalaki. So kailangan i-input nyo yung tatlong information na yun so that you can get a reading. The reading will provide you whether the child is growing normally, whether the child is at risk of stunting, and whether the child is stunted. However, this is just one measurement in time. So this is really just for you to be aware and to reinforce that behavior, that important behavior of nutrition screening and measuring the child's height. Because height is a more important indicator of chronic or long-term nutritional status compared to weight. That is why we focused on height here. So having said that, it is important to know this information and bring this information to your doctor, to the child's doctor or pediatrician, so that the doctor, if he sees certain growth issues, he can take some serial measurements over time, because that is the best way to see if the child's trajectory of growth is really going through the normal curve expected for his gender and for his age. So yeah, those are the things that the parents can do now easily.
I love how you said that, Doc, that you can do it and you can do it very easily, because that's very key, no? The key now, I think, for all of us is really to find power in information and being aware. And I've used it. It really is super easy to use. And tayo naman kasi we cannot address it unless we know of it, diba? You can only address something if you are fully aware. And it's one thing to be feeding our children well, but knowing where they stand is, in comparison to their peers or kids their age, provides useful insights talaga to take action. This way you can present it to your doctor and say, Doc, I've used the calculator and this is how it looks like for this child of mine, what can we do?
Yes. And that awareness is powerful, and not only that, it is helpful because the earlier you recognize the nutrition gap, the earlier you can intervene to prevent, long-term developmental delays.
Yes, grabe. I'm learning so much listening to our doctors here, and of course also with you, Dims, no? And I realized, actually I get a lot of people saying, matangkad naman yung asawa mo, kaya matangkad yung kids mo. But it's not true, As what we've heard earlier, 20% lang ang genetics. Nutrition really plays a big part. So for me, the key takeaways here are this. Number one, we have to act early. And then track consistently. We need to know what's happening, diba? Know our kids' height. Is there any intervention that we can do? And of course, we also need to choose nutrition that supports optimal growth. Not just grow taller faster, but also healthier and stronger overall.
That's right. And of course, proper nutrition is the foundation for growth and health, and can support, of course, children through the critical growth periods. And early childhood, especially the first 5 years, are not only crucial for physical growth, but also for developing strength, resilience, and immunity.
That's very right, Dr. Olay. And I would like to emphasize on the importance of quality growth. So siguro sa atin, marami sa atin, we just think, when we talk about growth, iniisip natin weight and height. So parang quantitative yun You measure yung timbang, you measure yung height in centimeters, but there is also an important concept now that Dr. Mandy also explained a while ago, which is quality growth, bone mineralization, bone density, and other aspects like immunity and other things related or factors that may impact growth. That is why quality growth is important for us to keep in mind when choosing the right or the proper nutrition for our children. So just like what Dr. Olay mentioned, 5 out of the 7 food groups. And of course, if needed, ONS, oral nutritional supplements, would be beneficial if the child may have nutritional gaps, if the child is a picky eater, or gusto mo lang dagdagan yung kanyang nakukuhang nutrisyon sa kanyang everyday meals. So PediaSure Plus contains a complete and balanced nutrition with also proteins from different sources, and also 23 micronutrients, vitamins, and minerals to support growth.
Right, and From the perspective of a scientist, the science is clear. Our research shows that addressing undernutrition with nutritional supplements go beyond just improving visible height, but they promote overall quality growth.